In the 40th episode of the American Reveille Podcast, the Democrats blamed us for stealing an election while... Stealing an election? Sidney Powell set to release the Kraken, and I'm about to reveal the Kraken. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Monday morning, the 16th of November. I'm James Lane. This is the 40th episode of the American Reveille Podcast, and I'm doing something absolutely different today. I'm kind of uncomfortable. It's a little bit different for me, but normally for the podcast, I script the whole thing. So I spend the entire evening of Sunday writing it, and in the wee morning hours of Monday, I record it and I put it out for you. But it was my youngest daughter's first birthday today, and we spent the entire day with her, did a unicorn smash cake. It was really awesome, and thank you to everybody who sent her birthday wishes on social media today. We really do appreciate it. But because I didn't write a script, I'm going to do something a little different. Like I said, I've got some bullet points, I've got some articles pulled up, and I'm going to take us through the Krakening. And what's the Krakening? Well, to me, the Krakening is the prelude, everything leading up to Sidney Powell releasing the Kraken, as she says, this week. Opening up the spigot, letting flow the fire hose of evidence, as she puts it. Because with all of the Dominion software glitch nonsense going around and everything, and I don't mean nonsense in a fake way, like it's a fake story. I mean nonsense as in it's ridiculous that they thought they would get away with something like this when using some horrible software and companies that have been known for this type of thing. And we're going to get into that. But what I want to do first is I want to talk about the narrative. See, the left is kind of like a crystal ball. They paint this future. They paint things. I don't know if you realize this, but they'll say, the right is doing this horrible stuff. And then it'll come true. It won't be horrible stuff, but people will think whatever it was that happened was horrible just because the Democrats labeled it in a certain way, because they don't research enough to recognize what people are, really doing. So when you're painting a narrative, right, you're looking to almost hypnotize a group of people, almost brainwash a group of people. And as you look around you, you can see there's a ton of people on the left walking around like zombies right now because they're misinformed. You see, they'll get a little chunk of truth in there. The left will put a little chunk of truth, like how about Amy Coney Barrett going into the Senate? That's truthful. But then they'll shroud it with a bunch of crap. They'll put in there, for example, Amy Coney Barrett's illegitimate. It's too close to the election. It's not historic. They're cheating, da-da-da-da-da. And it kind of makes vulnerable people with weak emotional fortitude, it makes them believe that something dastardly is going on, when in fact the dastardly thing that's going on, they're actually accurate. The dastardly thing that's going on isn't coming from the group that they're being led to believe is committing something horrible. It's actually coming from the people convincing them themselves, the Democrats. And they do that all the time. And that's why I want to take you back a little, and I want to show you some of these narratives that they put up. But first, right before we get into that, when we talk about how Trump, they've accused Trump of cheating so much and different stuff like that, I want to talk about what they were putting forward. Just look at this from September 27th. This comes from Vanity Fair. Trump dreams up another way to steal the election. Congress. And they're acting like this is fresh. This is September 27th, right before the election. But this isn't fresh. They've been talking about this. And we're going to go through a couple articles here. I've got stuff lined up. So even though this is uncensored, unedited, flowing right from my mouth, there might be some boo-boos. I might make some errors. I might slip a curse word. Even though that's happening, I've still got a little bit of an organized structure going on here, so bear with me. I really believe you're going to really enjoy this episode. I put together a lot of correlating evidence, and I really believe that this is where everything is heading. Okay, guys? So Trump dreams up another way to steal the election. This is from Vanity Fair, from Charlotte Klein. As polls find Joe Biden, remember this is September 27th, right before the election, as polls find Joe Biden leading nationally and most voters opposing Trump filling Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat before the election, the president is musing about how the Supreme Court and a GOP advantage in the House could keep him in power. Addressing supporters from the rally stage in Middletown, Pennsylvania on Saturday night, President Donald Trump continued to sow distrust in America's electoral process. He not only leveled baseless attacks against mail-in voting, as he's done all year, and remember, guys, just to cut this off for a second, remember when they started sending everybody to the polls all of a sudden, the left just said, oh, don't do the mail-in voting anymore, just get to the polls, we have to get to the polls, because they were so worried. You know, that was before they pressed the button in the middle of the night that loaded all of those votes into the Biden campaign. Anyway, check this out. Also publicly brainstormed different ways he could maintain power just hours after Trump officially named Judge Amy Coney Barrett, there it is, as his Supreme Court nominee to replace the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. A massive television screen appeared at the rally, projecting the message, "Fill that seat." If Republicans are successful in their scramble to confirm Barrett before the election day, and we were, her appointment would form a 6-3 conservative majority that could impact rulings on issues like abortion and gun rights for decades to come. You mean it could help stop socialism, right? That's what you're worried about. You want them to allow everybody to use abortions like candy and birth control, and you want the gun rights to go bye-bye so that when you seize power, nobody in the citizenry can do anything about it. That's what you meant to say there, correct? Right? Okay. We can keep reading, right? In the short term, the Supreme Court may be called upon to determine the winner of the election, an outcome the president considered as he made his pick. I think this will end up in the Supreme Court, Trump said last week. And yeah, it will probably end up in the Supreme Court. It's headed towards the Supreme Court because of rampant voter fraud. And we've seen that. There's been so much proof, and we're going to go through some of that a little later in this episode. Trump said last week, adding that he wants his pick on the nation's highest court to avoid the possibility of a 4-4 split. And why wouldn't he want to avoid the possibility of a 4-4 split? Think about that for a second while I take a sip, because I'm parched. Excuse me. Think about that. Why wouldn't you want to avoid a 4-4 split? You want to keep the integrity of our government flowing. You want to keep the government intact. You want to keep things working. You don't want things to be in question. You don't want processes, historical processes, to be in question. And getting to a 4-4 split where our highest court can't even make a decision, it puts things in question, and it really rattles the core of, our trust in these institutions. And we don't want that to happen regardless. So whoever was in power, if that was a Democrat, if that was President somebody else, if that was Obama at that moment, he would have filled that court faster than Trump did in a heartbeat. Okay, this has nothing to do with anything other than doing what the president is appointed to, is constitutionally obligated to, is elected to do, which is fill those seats. That's his job. Look it up. Trust me. Beyond turning to the Supreme Court and perhaps bypassing the election results through Republican-picked state electors, the president mused Saturday night about another way to steal an election. He has an advantage in Congress. I don't want to end up in the Supreme Court, and I don't want to go back to Congress, even though we have an advantage if we go back to Congress. Does everyone understand that? Trump said, according to the New York Times, another fake news outlet. I think it's 26-22 or something. It's counted one code per state. So we actually have an advantage. And oh, they're going to be thrilled to hear that. And I am thrilled to hear that. And you should be thrilled to hear that too. And if you haven't heard that already, you should know that if it comes down to being counted in the Congress like that, there is a different way it's done. And we're going to actually get into that in a little bit. It's all part of this order that we're going through tonight. So Trump, the Times writes, appeared to be referring to what is known as a contingent election in which the House of Representatives chooses the next president if no candidate wins an absolute majority of votes in the Electoral College, an outcome that would be more likely if the results in key states were in dispute. And they are in dispute. We know that. There are lawsuits all across this country right now. In that case, we're keeping reading right now. In that case, each state's House delegation is given one vote, with 26 votes required to win. Republicans do have an advantage, as Trump told supporters, currently controlling 26 delegations, while Democrats control 22. They said these numbers could change because of the vote that's taking place and the new Congress that's coming in January. But we know the election is over at this point. Remember, this article is from September 27th. And the election over, with the election over, we saw how many seats, how much power the Democrats lost. We saw how the American people rejected the sick, socialist, leftist ideology, this critical race theory, this pretend fantasy land with these LARPing children thinking everyone around them is racist because life isn't fair because they don't know how to work hard. Excuse me. I'm going to get fired for that one. Trump, the Times writes, appeared to be referring to what is known as a contingent election in which the House of Representatives chooses the next president. Ooh, I read that already, guys. Excuse me. Let's scroll down a little bit. Meanwhile, remember, I said this is live. This is uncensored. I'm not going to be editing. I'm not going to be cutting it out. This is purely a first time for me on the 40th episode, and I need to practice it. I need to get it better. I need to give you guys the best show possible, so I got to put myself through the fire, and if I make a little boo-boo here and there, we're going to drive right through it. We're going to drive right through it with a Mack truck, guys. Meanwhile, New Times and NBC polls found that the majority of Americans, including likely voters in battleground states, do not support a pre-election court pick, which is garbage. They found all kinds of evidence. And, you know, we actually are going to move on from this article in a second here, because this is just a precursor to what I'm getting at with a couple of these articles. You see, they're still saying, they're painting it right here. They're trickling in this information of how Trump might pull it off. And, you know, for months and even years, they've said he's going to cheat. He's going to win somehow. He's going to do something terrible. And I want to look at this. Look, this is February 18th, 2020. It's November. It's November 16th. This is from way earlier in the year. They were calling this Trump is going to cheat. How should Democrats fight against a president who has no moral or legal compass? They're preparing themselves to lose. They're preparing their base to lose. We talked about, months, like 2 months, 3 months ago, I did an episode called Operation False Phoenix. It was episode 20 something. I'll have to look it up and tell you in another episode because I didn't write it down. Like I said, this is coming right off the cuff. So I did that episode talking about how after they finally are defeated, they're going to split into two. They're going to break down. The Democrat Party as we know it is going to implode and split into a radical wing and a moderate wing. But that quasi-radical moderate wing, that merging of the two, it doesn't work. It's going to fracture. It's going to split. I think they know that. And I believe that the only way that they could somehow build themselves back up, rebrand themselves up, and keep their base, the only way they can do that is by pointing the finger and saying somebody else is doing the cheating, guys. It's not us. You brainwashed idiots. It's not us. You brainwashed idiots. It's not us. It's the Republicans. That's what they're going to say. That's what they're always going to say. That's what they've been saying. That's what they're trying to say. And when everything blows up in their face, they're going to go, see, they cheated. And all of their party supporters, their whole base, their heads are going to go poof and explode because they're not prepared to handle what's about to happen. They're not. We are. We know what's about to happen. We've seen it. We are intelligent. We look it up. We read the documents and we see what's going to happen. They tell us. The Democrats call it months in advance. Let's try this article out for size, guys. This is from The Atlantic, another fun one, from Sarada Perry, former senior speechwriter for President Barack Obama. So you can imagine what this article from February 18th, 2020, how it's about to go. And before I read it, I gotta wet my palate a little bit. So, trust me, guys. This will keep getting polished. We'll make it better. We'll get this podcast really, really professional. It already sounds professional. I usually have that nice format with the commercial in the middle, but this we're just going to roll right through it. You know, pop the cherry, break it out, bust it loose, break the glass, Manischewitz, whatever. We're going to get it through. Anyway. Democrat primary voters, all right? I'm going to read this to you. Trump is going to cheat. How should Democrats fight against a president who has no moral or legal compass? Democratic primary voters care deeply about electability. What most want is simple, a candidate who can beat President Donald Trump in November. So they worry about whether former Vice President Joe Biden will inspire young people and about whether Senator Bernie Sanders will scare away old people. And Joe Biden doesn't inspire anybody, and Bernie Sanders is obviously a sellout to his own people so that he could get a cabinet position. We'll talk about that a little bit too, possibly. They debate whether a political revolution is necessary to energize the base or whether the revolution will dissuade independence. Will the historic candidacy of a woman or a gay man take off or implode? But these concerns about policy and broad cultural appeal are secondary to the true electability crisis facing whichever Democrat wins the nomination. He or she will need to run against a president seemingly prepared and empowered to lie and cheat his way to re-election. What a bandit. They make him out to be such a bad guy. Like he's been in there just, you know, making mafia hits. Like, hey, Giuliani, shoot him in the face. Like, that's not happening. It's not happening. This is all fantasy land, guys. That's why you need to see this this narrative a little. You need to be reminded. Oh, geez. You need to be reminded of what's been happening. So, look at this. Factually, Trump's position is rather weak. A stronger candidate would be flying higher, given the economic recovery that began and yielded greater success under Barack Obama's watch, which is BS. The economy was falling apart when Barack Obama got out. And remember, this is from Sarada Perry, the former senior speechwriter for President Barack Obama. So she's kissing his butt in this article. I'm telling you what. Yeah, there it is. While Trump remains an untouchable, vengeful god within the Republican Party and is competitive in crucial battleground states. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to laugh at that. That's horrible writing. While Trump remains an untouchable, vengeful god within the Republican Party. It sounds like, you know, the evil emperor guy from Star Wars he's talking about. And is competitive in crucial battleground states. He is relentlessly divisive. He must win back the suburban votes who handed the House of Representatives to Democrats in 2018, an especially difficult task now that he's released an Achilles heel of a budget that would cut Medicare, cut Medicaid, Social Security, food stamps, and a host of other programs, which is an absolute lie. What happened is we became energy independent and we started switching stuff around. We were able to start using the money from our energy independence to pay certain things. So he started changing the budget around because he's forecasting our growth. That's what you do in business. I should know a thing or two about business. Look up my credentials when you get a chance. But, and this must be said out loud, The facts may not matter. Oh, okay, Atlantic. The facts may not matter now. Not that the facts ever mattered before to you, Atlantic. If past is prologue, Trump will say absolutely anything necessary to attract and maintain support, including patent untruths. His pathological lying has been well documented and has never ceased to stun. By one account, he has told more than 15,000 lies since taking office. Is there like a guy that follows him with like a little, that's a lie? 2 lies. 3 lies. Check. 4. 5. It's just like in the bushes. 17 lies. 22 lies. This is the stupidest stuff I've ever heard. 15,000 lies since taking office. A small sampling after falsely declaring that Hurricane Dorian was headed towards Alabama. You know, this is what I'm trying to get at. This is part of it. They said we're going to cheat, right? We could just scroll down to any part of this. It just goes on and on and on. Trump as a reporter running against him or didn't stick. Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server as Secretary of State was like a stain on her shirt that people couldn't get past because it was the only mark on an otherwise clean shirt. Okay. They just said that Hillary Clinton is absolutely clean. It's just the email thing that she did. Oops, she made a mistake. Okay. Yeah. Benghazi. But Trump had so many stains that you couldn't tell if it was a stained shirt or if it was just supposed to be that way. So they're saying that Trump is just so crappy that when he does crappy stuff, you expect it. So it's whatever. Nobody cares. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I want to move on from this to this. Trump will try to subvert the election. We must be prepared. This is from July 21st, 2020, and it's by Steve Almond. And guys, remember what I'm saying here. I'm doing this for a reason. I'm trying to show you the narrative. They are literally like a magic 8-ball. They're like you ever see the movie Back to the Future 2? And Marty gets the time machine. He goes to the future and Biff is there. He's super rich. And, I don't know. All this time travel crap happens. I don't remember a lot of it. I'm kind of nerdy, but I'm not fully nerdy. So I haven't watched that movie in a bunch of years. But they get a hold of the sports almanac, right? And the sports almanac has all of the winning bets in it from like 1940 to whatever. And that's how Biff gets really rich. So they're going after the sports almanac because whoever gets the sports almanac can change the future because they can make a bet on any sports game in the future and win, which means they'll be rich no matter what they do. Trump will try to subvert the election. We must be prepared. The Democrats like to paint the narrative in advance so that it gives time for their base, for their cronies, for their brainwashed zombies to absorb what they're saying for when it happens. Trump will try to subvert the election. Not that he's going to subvert the election, but he's going to win through legal means. They expect him to win. They expect him to win. Do you really think that he would appoint or try to appoint Hillary to the UN if he thought he was going to win? With the way people are acting right now, with what happened on Saturday in Washington, D.C., when 1 million patriots showed up and screamed out in one voice in the streets that we will not be silent, that we will not be forgotten, not again. Do you really think that they think they're going to win? They've been painting this picture for 4 years, guys. Let's read. 3.5 years exhausting. 3.5 years. Oh, it does say that. 3.5 years. Oh, it's a typo. 3.5 exhausting years into his failed regime. Hey, you guys. You have a typo here. And now I'm reading it on my show. You guys, I'm calling you out from WBUR.org. This WBUR place. You guys need to fix your typo because I hate reading things with typo. Excuse me. If I ever get a typo, guys, feel free when you read my articles. If there are typos in there, I'm a grammar Nazi sometimes. So if there are typos in my crap, please call me out on it. If you want to be brutal, be brutal. We can start a trend. We can make a movement with that where you guys like to talk crap to me whenever I screw up when I'm publishing from my writers or from myself. But anyway, let's get back into this. 3.5 exhausting years into his failed regime, most Americans recognize Donald Trump for what he is, a loser. Oh, okay. There we go. The latest polls show him trailing Joe Biden by 15 points with a lowly 36% approval rating. This is how and I know this isn't like an NBC or a Fox News or a Breitbart or whatever, but I'm trying to take things from everywhere, from all over the place, stuff you've probably never read, stuff you've probably never heard, and I'm trying to show you how it all follows each other anyway, because this left-wing propagandist poison that they all drink, it all comes out the same. It all tastes the same. It all smells the same. It's all got the same goopy, black, disgusting viscosity because it's crap. Plain and simple. It's BS. The latest polls show him trailing Joe Biden by 15 points. Remember, this was written well before the election. There are even indications that he's starting to lose the cult members who applauded his idiotic wall, his sadistic family separation policy that Obama did because he built the cages, not Trump, his massive tax cut for corporations, and his pathetic obedience to Vladimir Putin. The entire basis of his re-election campaign hyping the vibrant economy Barack Obama built. Really? Barack Obama destroyed our economy. Oh my God, how many times do I have to say it? Anyway, has been blown to bits by the COVID-19 pandemic, which is ripping through American cities at a horrifying rate. Okay, rather than overseeing a federal response based on science and public health, you mean that thing that he did do? Along with Operation Warp Speed, which will be getting people a vaccine ASAP, like the people that need it the most within the next month or two. I mean, really? This is BS. Rather than overseeing a federal response based on science and public health, Trump peddled quack cures and happy talk. The virus revealed him to be a snake oil salesman who tweets because he cannot govern and cares about only his political interests. Okay, yeah. That does not make any sense whatsoever. His response to the protest movement sparked by the murder of George Floyd has been predictably racist, authoritarian, and out of step. I don't even have to go down the rest of this article. You know what it's going to say. Look, it's pages. It's pages of this person's hate. Look, another one. This one is from August 18th, 2020. Let me get another one so you don't have to hear me choking on my tongue. So this one is from The Guardian, another reputable source. Anyway, cheating is a way of life for Donald Trump, and now it's his election strategy. Arwa Madawi says that. She has a look on her face, a very specific look on her face. If you're listening, you might not see that look on her face, but if you'd like to go and watch the video wherever it may be at the time, YouTube, Rumble, I'll have it up. Trust me, you can go to www.americanreveille.com. I'm sure you'll find it there on episode 40. But if you just look at her face, she has what we call RBF. I'm not going to explain that to you. You can Google what that is. And if you're a woman, you're listening and you're offended, you probably shouldn't be listening. You're probably a lefty and you're just listening because you hate me and you're looking for something to be angry about. So here it is. But if you are a woman that likes this show and you know what RBF is, then I'm sure you'll get a laugh out of what I'm saying because you know I am absolutely right. That is an RBF right there. By sowing doubt baselessly about the legitimacy of postal voting, the U.S. president has laid the groundwork to contest the result in November. He's been accused of cheating on all three of his wives and cheating his workers out of paychecks as a teenager. By the way, you see how she spelled checks? CHEQUES? That's how asshole writers spell checks, because it's a more unique way to spell it, and it makes them feel special about their writing. I write a ton. Trust me, guys. Look at this. Check all this out. This is like, just like a 10, 20. You see all that? Maybe you could hear it if you're listening. That's like 20 of the 40 episodes, maybe less. I write my ass off. So I should know a thing or two about writing. For those listening, I just showed a big stack of papers of my writing. And I know that when people write checks like that, people write any word like that, they're just being assholes. Seriously. As a teenager, he reportedly paid someone to take his SAT exam so he could cheat his way into a university. It's suspected he cheated on his taxes. He's rumored to have cheated at golf. Cheated. He's such a bad guy. He even cheats at golf. When he tips his waitresses, he gives them a penny probably too. Oh my gosh. He has people shine his shoes and then he kicks them in the face and then makes them shine it. This is just crap. His niece, Mary Trump, has said Donald Trump embraces cheating as a way of life. Mary Trump's disgruntled. The entire family has literally discredited her. Everybody's discredited her. That's why she's disappeared into obscurity. She made her book money and she went bye-bye. That's all that was. Trump is openly and unabashedly attempting to rig November's presidential election. The only way the U.S. can have a free and fair election during a pandemic is if there's widespread postal voting, something Trump and his lackeys are doing their best to prevent. Step 1, install one of the president's cronies and mega donors, Louis DeJoy. This is remember when they were talking all that crap about the post office a couple months ago, that Trump's dude was running it, that Trump's main man was running the post office, and Trump was going to screw them out of cheating in the screw them out of mail-in voting in the election. The Postmaster General of the United States Service was Louis DeJoy. He's put in there. So that's Trump's crony, they're saying. Step 2, implement cost-cutting measures that slow mail delivery. You mean streamline the mail service so it doesn't go out of business. The richest country in the world now has a postal system so unfit for purpose that the USPS recently warned 46 states and Washington, D.C. that it could not guarantee that all of the postal votes cast in November would be counted. And that's because the states decided to all of a sudden say, hey, we're going to send 80 million ballots out to random people like cats, dead people, illegal immigrants, and children and stuff. Like those 150-year-old people that got to vote and stuff like that. It's ridiculous. It's really actually kind of crazy going back and reading some of these articles, isn't it? Now that we know what has happened and what's going on and what's happening in the courts, when they were saying all of this stuff and they kept flip-flopping back and forth. And now we can see why. Now we know. We put it together. Trump's not even trying to hide what he's doing. He admitted last week he doesn't want to give the USPS additional money because he doesn't want to make voting easier. The corruption's so blatant that if it were going on in any other country, the U.S. would have invaded and promised to install democracy. That is a ridiculous line. Right there, they're suggesting, they're like subconsciously implanting the thought that we're a warmongering country and we just go in and invade people, which is basically what the deep state's into, which is what you will get if Joe Biden does steal this election. This is a ridiculous piece of, I guess you would call it, writing. And the whole thing, the whole reason why I'm going through this, again, is to show you how they've been painting this picture over months and months and months and years and years and years. Here's the next article I have to show you. That's from November 11th. This is just from a few days ago. Now, you remember I showed you these articles, right? This is from September 27th. That's just a month ago, right? Month and some change. This one right here about Trump lying. This is from February, earlier in the year. I'm showing you like a whole year's worth of them just saying Trump is going to steal the election. He's going to cheat. There's going to be all this voter fraud and it's all going to be Trump. Trump is going to do all this horrible stuff. And then when Trump goes to say that horrible stuff is happening, voter fraud used to be rampant. Now it's an anomaly. Oh, I guess all of the voter fraud disappeared. Gone are the days when bribes and voting by voice were commonplace at the polls. Today's secret ballots and improved security measures have largely ensured fair outcomes in elections. By Aaron Blakemore, a paid shrill, horrible person, obviously, because to lie about voter fraud just goes to show that you're either very, very dumb or a paid piece of crap. That's just how I see it. If you're a journalist and you're making this stuff up, because this is made up. This is made up. There are sworn affidavits. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces of evidence across dozens of states at this point, with 10 states in the main focus of things. Nothing's been counted. Nothing's been certified. Biden hasn't won an election. Listen to this. The office of the president-elect isn't an actual entity. It's not an office. It's nothing. The office of the president-elect was something created by Biden. It's like a company. You incorporate it, then you can stand in front of its name because you own it. It's not real. It's all smoke and mirrors, folks. It's a horse and pony show. It's nothing. The left is the snake oil, guys. It's quite ridiculous. It's quite ridiculous. But like I said in the beginning, I believe that they're doing this so that in the end, they save their members. They are able to point the finger, say someone else cheated. It wasn't us. And then people don't leave their party. So when their party does start collapsing, it doesn't completely fall apart. They need something to rebuild. Without their base, it's gone forever. So they have to point the finger. At this point, it's their only strategical way out of this horrifying mess they created. But they don't count on and they don't estimate Trump to come after them. And I believe he will. I believe his last promise is going to be fulfilled. I believe after he crushes them in the courts and takes back the second election or the second term of his election like he's rightfully owed for the landslide he should have gotten, the landslide he will get. And remember, I still haven't backed out of what I said. I've never backtracked. I've never not said he's going to get a landslide. When all of this is overturned and everything is said and done, I believe he's going to have that 305 plus landslide because the states are going to flip. It's going to happen. But it's not going to be right, according to the left. It's not going to be fair. It's not going to be legal because, like I said, the Democrats for months have been painting us as cheaters. And when it comes to voter fraud, now they're saying it's not happening at all. So let's read this from the National Geographic. In the aftermath of the 2020 election, President Donald Trump unleashed a barrage of litigation to review results in battleground states, while also making unsubstantiated claims that the election was tainted by tremendous corruption and fraud. Trump's campaign has filed lawsuits in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada, Georgia, Arizona, states where the president-elect Joe Biden, see, he's not the president-elect. They just stuck it right in there. Garnered more votes. The media, National Geographic, the freaking magazine that shows dudes walking around in other countries with those long carrot things on their genitals and freaking spears, they don't get to pick who the president is. I didn't know that, Thomas Jefferson was like, oh, here he. National Geographic has designated me the president. Heidi-ho. That's not how this works. It's just not how it works. Look, they even try to justify it here. They snuck it in there. Since 1848, the Associated Press has declared the winner after tallying votes counted by local and state officials. Today, those painstaking vote counts, along with modern analytical modeling tools, you mean like Dominion? We're going to get into that. Trust me, we are going to get into that, guys. With modern analytical modeling tools, enable the nonpartisan, nonprofit news cooperative and TV networks to project a winner. That doesn't mean they are the winner. We have a constitutional process, like Dr. Evil says for magma, constitutional process, idiots. Not you guys, not the people listening to this show, not the hardworking Americans that need to know the truth. I'm talking about the leftists that pretend like this crap is, the real thing when they are living in La La Land. They're living in a fantasy. They are pretending our Constitution is an illegitimate document, and they are dancing about on the backs, on the graves of our forefathers. And it's quite offensive, to tell you the truth. It's blood boiling. It's angering. You should be pissed off right now. You should be offended. You should be ashamed. You should be worried what these lunatics are planning on doing. Because right now, we have people writing about how the news basically picks the president and we should just accept it. Trump's lawsuits challenge aspects of voting and how long mail-in ballots can be accepted after Election Day. They shouldn't be, because after Election Day, ballots are illegal. Attorney General William Barr has also authorized U.S. attorneys to investigate any substantial allegations of voting irregularities. Election officials in every state and from both political parties contacted by the New York Times have reported they had no evidence of fraud or irregularities affecting the outcome of the election. Experts predict Trump's lawsuits have little chance of success, but some fear they will undermine public trust in the electoral process itself. See, look at that right there. That is what I'm talking about, this blame shifting, the way the Democrats, they structure these things. They paint this narrative to save their own skin. Look, some fear, they talk about how this is not going to work. It's probably not. The little chance, which means there's a chance. Like they can always say, oh, see, there was a chance and Trump won. That's in there on purpose because it's subconsciously preparing their base for Trump actually winning. It says, but some fear they will undermine public trust in the electoral process itself. Everything the left is doing, from the Democrats in the Senate trying to block Amy Coney Barrett when that was happening, which they had no power to do so. That was just basically a child throwing a fit, a baby Schumer throwing a hissy fit, to Nancy Pelosi practically committing treason with half the things that come out of her mouth. Everything they do, from Black Lives Matter and Antifa hurting children, old people on Saturday, from stabbing somebody on Saturday, from coming to a million MAGA march, causing trouble, starting problems, and hurting innocent people. They're the ones that march through the city streets. They're the ones that burn things. They're the ones that light their cities on fire and hurt their neighbors and close down businesses and destroy economies. That's not us. They come to our rallies and hurt people. You know what I have to say? I have to say thank God for Enrique Tarrio, and thank God that the Proud Boys were there to protect innocent, Trump-loving, hardworking, red-blooded, blue-collar Americans that were showing their pride, their support, and their love for our president on Saturday. You know, guys, they, the left, this slime, this scum bucket of socialist, horrifying, just socialist goo that seeps out of the crevices of AOC somewhere and falls upon these people and literally brainwashes them. They are the ones that undermine public trust. And I'm sorry for that graphic picture I put in your head there, but it came off the top of my head. Again, there's no script here on this one, so you'll have to forgive me a few times. Let's keep reading. It delegitimizes the electoral process to no end because there's nothing to the claims at all, says John Mark Hansen, political science professor at the University of Chicago. See, they pull these liberal teachers from these liberal universities. University of Chicago is a liberal university. Make no mistake about it. All right. They're studying underwater basket weaving, liberal, women's transgender freaking goldfish studies. They're doing all of that crap at the University of Chicago. And just because you get a degree doesn't mean you're smart. Trust me, I've been going to college for a long time. Remember, I'm a PhD student. I literally deal with people that can't put a sentence together and somehow get into PhD classes, okay? So trust me, you can be an idiot and be a political science professor. It's a fact of life. You can be an idiot and be an astronaut. You can be an idiot and be a coal miner. You can be an idiot and be the former president of the United States, Barack Obama. You could be an idiot and be a crackhead son of the former vice president of the United States, Hunter Biden. You know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, if any voter fraud did take place in 2020, it would have been an anomaly though rampant in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Electoral fraud has become rare with the advent of stronger voter protections. And here's how voter fraud was perpetrated in the past and why it all but faded away. They're going to get into this whole thing about political bosses and party machines. we should read a little bit of this. It's fun history, and it's actually what's kind of happening. They're pretending it's not, but during the 19th and early 20th centuries, powerful networks known as political machines typically controlled local votes through cronyism, bribes, and the ability to get out the vote, consolidating political, social, and financial power in the hands of a few. In New York City, the Democratic Tammany Hall machine, remember Gangs of New York? That was a pretty good movie. The Butcher, Bill Cuddy, all that stuff. Tammany Hall machine came to dominate urban life in the mid-1800s. In a city with few social services and a weak local government, Tammany Hall was omnipresent. Party bosses wielded the power to arrange citizenship for newly arrived immigrants, provided assistance during emergencies, and connected people with employment opportunities. In exchange, it expected voters to elect candidates who would help maintain its power and use fraud and muscle to ensure loyalty. Joe Biden said that in the first month he's in, first year, whatever it is, first week, he's going to legalize 13 million illegal aliens just because there isn't a boat in the harbor of New York with Irish immigrants coming off. Doesn't mean they aren't doing exactly what this says. Just in a modern context, you see, people forget that technology advances, things change, times change. So just because it's not happening the exact way it is written about things from the 1800s doesn't mean it's not happening. It's happening, ladies and gentlemen, and you need to pay attention. Plain and simple. The machine threw enormous pre-election parties plying voters with food and drink. And on election day, they encouraged residents to vote multiple times by shaving their beards. And see, they do this thing to make you go, ho, 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 this is funny. This couldn't be happening. Da, 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 da. You know, sending mail-in ballots out, all these mail-in ballots, not absentee ballots, but mail-in ballots out multiple times. Somebody moving, getting another ballot, getting to vote twice. A dead person getting to vote. Their cat getting to vote, a child getting to vote, multiple votes happening, votes being changed. That is the 21st century equivalent to voting multiple times, changing by shaving their beards, or by, changing their identities and going to different polling stations. It's the equivalent, guys. It's the equivalent. I'm not going to spend the next 3 hours. This is a long article here, okay? But we're going to move on to that because we're going to look at what's going to happen if the state results are disputed, because there's a clear path here. The left wants you to think it's over. That's why they keep trying to discourage you. That's why they keep trying to make people feel down and out. It's a tactic straight out of Sun Tzu, straight out of, the 50 Keys to Strategy or whatever, one of those books. It's historically a normal thing for a conquering or an attempting conquering enemy to come in and try to demoralize the people supporting the people they're fighting. Because if there's no support for the cause dies. And I think you saw on Saturday, before all the violence started because of the left, I think you saw on Saturday in D.C. and in multiple rallies across this country, the loud voice of the not so silent majority, the millions of people around the world that screamed with us, and the million or so people that were in D.C. at the top of their lungs shouting, "We won't take it." This isn't going away. This isn't. We know what's going on with Dominion. We know what's going on with voter fraud. There are hundreds of thousands of votes that are going to have to be overturned. There are hundreds of thousands of votes, if not millions of votes, that are going to be disqualified. So what's going to happen if that happens? That's what we're about to get into. And we're going to go through, like I said, we're going to talk about the fraud. We're going to show you where this is going right before the Kraken is released. That's why we're revealing the Kraken before the Krakening. I had to. I'm sorry. I'm a dad. Excuse me. I had to take another sip there. It's just sugar-free Kool-Aid, guys. Just sugar-free Kool-Aid. What will happen if state results are disputed? And guys, this is from abc.net. All right. This is from an Australian news source run through ABC by Michael Doyle. I like some of these places out of Australia. I trust their information. What will happen if state results are disputed? With several key states going down to the wire, the Trump campaign is signaling it will dispute results that don't go their way. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, North Carolina, and Georgia are all in doubt. The so-called blue wall of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania are the ones being watched very closely. Mr. Trump has already said he believed he won the election and said he would involve the Supreme Court to contest a negative result. And that's what the left has been pushing this whole time. That's what I was just showing you for the last 20 minutes. All of those different articles saying he's cheating, he's this, he's that, setting us up for what's about to actually happen. There could be a situation where both Mr. Trump and Mr. Biden claim victory in several of these states, and that is kind of what's happened. In this case, both parties, remember, by the way, guys, this right here is from November 4th, and it's November 16th. Let's get this right here. There could be a situation where both Mr. Trump and Mr. Biden claim victory in several of these states. In this case, both parties could try to send their electors to the Electoral College. In this scenario, it is theoretically possible for a state's governor and legislator, each representing a different political party, to submit two different election results, which has happened once before in U.S. history. And that's what I've been saying. This is like the 1876 election of Rutherford B. Hayes. I've been saying this for weeks and weeks. I think I actually said it before on a previous video I did maybe a week or 2 or 3 ago. So we can look back at some point if you want to see who said this first on the internet. But that dispute was resolved after Republican Rutherford B. Hayes became president in exchange for withdrawing U.S. troops left over from the Civil War out of the southern states. Remember, that's Democrat-run southern states. Democrat Party, the party of slavery, the party of bigotry and racism, the party of segregation, the party that seceded from the nation, Southern Democrats. The risk of this happening again is heightened in the battleground states of Michigan, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, which Democrat governors and Republican-controlled legislators, which have Democrat governors and Republican-controlled legislatures. In the lead up to the election, experts said the president could press Republican-controlled legislatures to appoint electors favorable to him, claiming the initial vote count reflected the true outcome. See, they even slip a little bit of that Trump is cheating stuff in here. A lot of this mainstream, media that's going around leaks into some of these other outlets, and it's so hard to avoid. It's literally like a virus that spreads, almost like that left-wing ideology, that socialist agenda, that Black Lives Matter, that Antifa terrorism crap. It spreads through the internet like a virus. Governors in those same states could end up backing a separate slate of electors pledged to Mr. Biden if the final count showed the Democratic candidate had won. If this happens, both set of electors would meet and vote on December 14th, and the competing results would be sent to Congress. Now, everybody does say the 14th is the cutoff date, but they never mention the 8th. The 8th is known as safe harbor deadline, and under federal law, it's when you have to resolve any disputes. So on the 8th, we need to know whether the states are going to certify or whether they're not. That's the deadline. That's when we would know. And if they do not finalize their vote counts, if nobody gets certified, because remember, nothing's certified technically on paper. Biden has 0 electoral votes, and so does Trump. They're both technically 0-0 because nobody has actually certified their results yet. So if they don't certify their results by the 8th, by Safe Harbor Day, by federal law, Congress is no longer required to accept its results under the Electoral College system. That's kind of scary for a lot of people. So what's that mean? That means that it would be counted by Congress and not the electoral votes. Both houses of Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate, could both choose to accept the same group of electors. See, this goes into these bylaws of the Constitution, these other categories where they tell us what we need to do if the Electoral College process isn't working out. That would settle the matter. The chambers would also split, or could also split, which is more likely if the Republicans retain control of the Senate and Democrats hold on to their House majority. Now, as we know, the Republicans retain the Senate, and the Democrats, yes, they hold their majority, but they lost a ton of ground. So they are in an even weaker position in the House than before. If politicians can't agree on a set of electors, the country will find itself in uncharted territory. This is where they're trying to scare you a little. Interpreting the Electoral Count Act would be needed to decide who wins. Described by some academics as unintelligible, it seems to favor the slate of electors certified by the state's governor, according to Ned Foley, a professor at Ohio State University Moritz College of Law. However, Mr. Foley told Reuters that some scholars and an analysis by Congressional Research Service have rejected that conclusion. Academics have sketched out several scenarios. Under one, Mr. Pence, as president of the Senate, could throw out both sets of state electors. Another contemplates that the House of Representatives would end up choosing between Mr. Biden or Trump. There is even a scenario in which the Speaker of the House, currently, which is probably going to end soon since the Democrat Party is revolting against her, thankfully, Nancy Pelosi could become the acting president. Sorry, I just got a shiver up my spine. That sounds like the most horrifying, disgusting, puking-inspiring, nausea-inspiring nightmare I could think of. It could require the Supreme Court to interpret the act, but that is not a guarantee. Jessica Levinson, director of Loyola Law School's Public Service Institute, told Reuters, if this scenario plays out, the court could decide to not be the institution which decides the election. I could see a court saying this would really be better left up to Congress. And if it goes to Congress, the way the count rolls, the way it works, we win. The Republicans win. And we should win, because the left, and this is what I've been getting at, painting this picture this whole time, showing you where they've been lying about us, how they've been saying we're cheating, how they've been saying that we're going to take it all the way to the Supreme Court and win because we're the ones cheating, when they the whole time have been cheating their asses off. And I know you've heard about the Dominion glitch. I know you've heard about it. Where are we? I want you to hear about this. I want you to look at this. WikiLeaks. Soros-linked voting machines now used in most battleground states were used to rig the 2004 Venezuela elections, guys. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. These machines, all right, they use this Dominion voting software that has been proven that you can hack in 7 minutes with a tiny screwdriver and a USB port if you're in person. But now they're revealing that you can just tap into them. They have Chinese parts in them. There's thousands of them. They're used in countries all over the world. They've been shown to be malfunctioning, non-useful, to be hacked time and time again in the last dozen years. This goes all the way back. Look, 2004. They were used in 2004 to rig the Venezuela elections. This is by Jim Hoft. This is coming out of the Gateway Pundit. This is late breaking last night. I want to read this to you. Joseph Stalin famously said, "Those who cast the votes decide nothing. Those who count the votes decide everything." And Stalin was right. And today we're seeing this play out in the United States of America. Smartmatic, a UK-based company, is a George Soros-linked company that's provided voting technology in 16 states, including battleground zones like Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. And these are used all over the world, by the way. I was actually talking to my wife. My wife's from the Philippines, and Smartmatic was horribly cheating the elections in the Philippines over the last few years. They came under tremendous fire. The president of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte, hates Smartmatic because they rigged Filipino elections. And that could be a whole other podcast and video upon itself. Trust me. I did look up some stuff. I did verify what my wife said is true. I have lived in the Philippines, so I'm not doubting the story with the corruption that I've seen over there. And what we're seeing here in the States isn't far off of what I've seen in the Philippines. Trust me. The company was formed in 2000, and a Chavez campaign advisor was placed on the board as well. The chairman of Smartmatic is Lord Mark Malloch Brown, who sits in the British House of Lords, and he's also on the board of George Soros's Open Society Foundations. He was formerly the vice chairman of Soros's investment funds, and even the deputy secretary general of the United Nations when he worked as chief of staff to Kofi Annan. According to WikiLeaks documents, Smartmatic machines were used to rig the 2004 Venezuela elections in favor of the Marxist candidate, Hugo Chavez. And we all know what happened to Venezuela. And we all do know as well that WikiLeaks has revealed truthful things in the past. They have a very highly successful track record of being honest about real things. They don't leak BS often. The Venezuelan-owned Smartmatic Corporation is a riddle, both in ownership and operation, complicated by the fact that its machines have overseen several landslide and contested victories by President Hugo Chavez and his supporters. The electronic voting company went from a small tech startup to a market player in just a few years, catapulted by its participation in the August 2004 recall referendum. Smartmatic has claimed to be of U.S. origin, but its true owners, probably elite Venezuelans of several political strains, remain hidden behind a web of holding companies in the Netherlands and Barbados. The Smartmatic machines used in Venezuela are widely suspected of, though never proven conclusively to be, susceptible to fraud. The company is thought to be backing out of the Venezuelan electoral event, focusing now on other parts of the world, including the United States. We're seeing what's happening right now, right? We're seeing what's happening right now. The Smartmatic owners were denounced in June 2004 by the press for having received a U.S. $200,000 equity investment from a Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela joint venture fund called FONCREI, FONCREI, which was a Chavez organization, and a Chavez campaign advisor was placed on the board as well. And that seems to be a Smartmatic thing, a Dominion thing, to have people placed on the board. You're going to see what I mean about that in a little bit, but we're going to talk about that in a second. I want to keep going here. Check the code. Dominion voting system tied to Hugo Chavez voter fraud was used in 2020 swing states. That's tying this together. So WikiLeaks comes out. They talk about how this software, these machines, this company has been suspected of fraud, has stolen elections for Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. And then this article is going to bring it in and let you know that this same technology, the same code, the same stuff was used in our election in our swing states, in the chaos that's happening right now. You went to bed knowing Trump was going to win, and you woke up and he lost, and he never actually lost. It's because of this right here. Check the code. Dominion voting system tied to Hugo Chavez voter fraud was used in 2020 swing states. This is by Wayne Creed. The Dominion voting system was first designed for Hugo Chavez to win and keep himself in office. It was also used in the 2020 U.S. elections. In fact, it was used in all 6 swing states, and it unilaterally helped one team with late-night voters tallies. Only one direction, only one party, always. Interesting how that works, isn't it? 3 companies rule election systems and software: Dominion and Hart Intercivic. Used by 92% of U.S. voters as Dominion Services, 40%. Smartmatic is another big U.S. player. This is the one that's known for cheating elections around the world. Smartmatic. You have to remember that name, Smartmatic. It's going to come up this week when the Kraken is released. Excuse me. This is going long, ladies and gentlemen. This is probably going to be the longest podcast I've ever done. So you're going to see whether or not I have the chops or not. I'm sure you're going to let me know whether or not you hated this broadcast, but I think you're going to love it when I tie it together at the end. Smartmatic was the subject of controversy, sound like Sean Connery there. Smartmatic was the subject of controversy in 2004 when the Hugo Chavez-led Venezuelan government selected it to provide the voting machine system for the presidential recall election, even though it would have been the company's first time providing machines for an election. Smartmatic teamed up with a Venezuelan software company, Bitsa, which at the time was 28% owned by the Chavez's government. In 2005, a Chicago city alderman questioned the possible ties between Sequoia and the Venezuelan government when that company's machines were used in the March 2006 Chicago primaries. We were already getting questionable things going on with this stuff in 2006 in Chicago. Dominion, founded by Canadian John Paulos in 2000, is now owned by Staple Street Capital LLC, says Bloomberg. Writes Forbes, in 2009, Diebold Election Systems was sold to its competitor ES&S, and in 2010, selling to Dominion Voting Systems, gaining all intellectual property, software, firmware, and hardware. They consolidated into one business unit. That's a very powerful thing you can do in the business world, trust me. Dominion and Smartmatic contracted for 2010 and 2013 Philippines elections. There we go. I told you I didn't read all the way in some of these articles, so there we go. That shows you right there. I'm talking to my wife. She's telling me about the Filipino elections with this software, and now I'm bringing it to you in this article right here. All right. They contracted for 2010 and 2013 Philippines elections where claims of malfunction and fraud abounded. In 2016, 71 million voters in 1,635 jurisdictions used Dominion. And it's also tied to the Clinton Foundation and a $2.25 million project together. And I know that this sounds like conspiracy stuff, but at the end, you're going to see how this all ties together. Trust me, Clinton is involved. Trust me, you're going to see how this ties in anyway. And Robert Mueller's firm, WilmerHale, was their agent in 2004. Dominion outsources components to China down to the chip component level. That's a quote in there. And we've seen that information coming out in the last few days. Over the weekend, they're admitting there are Chinese parts that can emit and receive signals in this equipment. Quote, former White House cybersecurity coordinator Michael Daniel notes voting machine companies aren't known for cybersecurity expertise. Jake Staffer, AF cyber analyst, tested Dominion voting systems for California, observing, quote, I've found for voting systems, security is not taken very seriously. Testing Staffer found vulnerabilities in Dominion's Democracy Suite, DDC, voting equipment, enabling remote code execution, denial of service attacks, and offline ballot tampering. How can a vendor sell a voting system with so many vulnerabilities? Gee, I wonder how much dictators around the world would pay. I wonder how much Joe Biden would pay. I wonder how much the Democratic Party would pay, the Socialist Democratic Party as it's becoming. I wonder how much they would pay for a system that would allow them to win elections. Well, they've been paying for it for a long time since we've been using it here for a while. So glitches or witches? Let's read this section for a second. The election software glitching in Georgia and Michigan, which incorrectly gave Joe Biden thousands of votes, is used in 28 states, and that's a fact. When Dominion blamed a day before update, Politico wrote, Supervisor Marcia Ridley of Spalding County Board of Elections says records show no such update occurred. That is something that they don't ever do. I've never seen them update anything the day before the election. Dominion then corrected this, admitting the last update was October 31st. Does this reveal fraud or a cover-up? Well, they're asking that at the end of their writing here, but I'm going to tell you something. Why would you lie? Why would you lie and then cover up your lie and then swap back and then tell the truth and then offer no explanation if you weren't hiding something? A lot of fishy stuff's going on. Stuff that happened in the middle of the night We've heard about the cars and the buses and the vans driving up with ballots. We've heard about them blocking the view, not letting, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of votes in these states where GOP vote watchers were not allowed to actually see the votes being counted. All those votes are technically illegal votes. This is ridiculous. The mass amount of fraud coupled with these glitches that aren't even glitches. They're intentional. Coupled with this intentional tampering, this actual true election fraud, the greatest fraud of an election in the history of probably the world. It's all right here, guys. It's all right here. All right? Look, we are fixing to overturn the results of the election in multiple states. This was Sunday. All right? Sidney Powell's talking about releasing the Kraken. Have you seen Spartacus? Release the Kraken! The vicious, vile, gigantic squid-like creature from the depths of Hades coming to wreck the enemy ships. Listen, guys, they're not screwing around. We talked about Pompeo the other day confidently saying that we were going to transition into a second Trump turn. We see all of these key deep state swamp creatures getting fired out of the Pentagon and replaced with Trump officials. And now the lawyers are saying that they're fixing to overturn the results in several states. They talk about here, I've shown you all of this glitching. I've shown you all of this fraud. You know about all of the fraud that's going on. You're pissed off about what happened on Saturday. You know that we're being attacked, we're being assaulted. We can't speak out without fear of losing our jobs, losing our families, our livelihoods, our bank accounts. People aren't allowed to go into certain places anymore if they like Trump, if they voted for Trump. People are expected to bow down and go to what? Truth and reconciliation boards if Biden does steal the election and get in. Screw that. Do you really think we're going to stand for that? Did you see the amount of people in the streets on Saturday? Do you think that's it? That is just a small taste, guys. But it's not going to get to a Biden stealing the election thing because the Kraken is being released. And that's why we've been revealing the Kraken on this episode, starting with the narrative and how they've been painting the picture and how the left has been telling us what's going to happen this entire time so that they'd save face. They've just skewed it in a certain way to point the blame somewhere else. Sidney Powell said a few days ago that she would release the Kraken today. She and Rudy Giuliani did just that on Sunday Morning Futures with Marie Bartiromo. A couple days ago, attorney Sidney Powell was on Lou Dobbs, and I correct myself. I think she said that yesterday, release the Kraken on Sunday. It was a couple days ago, but that's leading up into what she said on Sunday. Let's see. Sidney Powell told Lou Dobbs on Friday it's time to release the Kraken. Here it is. We're fixing to overturn the results of the election in multiple states, and President Trump won not just by hundreds of thousands of votes, but by millions of votes. Do you really think they would confidently do this stuff, spend all of this money, waste all this time fighting if it wasn't true? If it wasn't because we were in an unprecedented historic time and we weren't expecting any of this? This is not normal. 2020 is not normal. So why would you expect a normal results? The media did not get anything right in 2016, and they didn't get anything right in 2020. Why would you believe them now, lefties? Why would you believe them now? It's because they're brainwashed. It's because they've drank the Kool-Aid. It's because they don't live in reality, but we do, patriots. We do. We know this is real. We know what's happening is true. And we know things are about to be flipped around. We've sworn witness testimony. They have sworn witness testimony of why the software was designed. It was designed to rig elections. He's been fully briefed on it. He saw it happen in other countries. It's been exported internationally for profit by the people that are behind Smartmatic and Dominion. And we know that there are problems all the way from Venezuela to the Philippines to all over the world with these companies, with these companies. They did this on purpose. I'm reading now. It was calculated, and they've done it before. We have evidence from 2016 in California. We have so much evidence, I feel like it's coming through a fire hose, and we talked about that earlier in the podcast. We're that they're going to unleash the fire hose this week. Things are going to come out. I believe there's going to be huge announcements this week. I really, really, really do, guys. She said we're going to overturn the election, right? I want you to look at this. I want you to look at what Biden's saying he's going to do if they do steal the election, because we already know what the Trump team is doing. We know we got Sidney Powell on the case. General Flynn's lawyer, our General Flynn's lawyer, Sidney Powell, is on the case. We know that Trump is in the saddle. We know we've got Rudy Giuliani on our side, the guy who brought down the mob, the mayor of New York from 9/11. This guy is no joke. This is no joke. The left is pretending right now. They're sitting here trying to demoralize you, pretending to be sipping tea in La La Land, and we're sore losers. But this isn't a 2016 where we're just being sore losers like they were. No, this is the swamp getting drained, because if it's not, the swamp is coming back. Sidney Powell, Smartmatic voting machines chairman of the board, Peter Neffinger, named to Joe Biden's transition team. Do you know what that's called? That's called paying your debts. Biden is part of a crime establishment. He's in a crime family. He runs a crime organization. Hunter's a bagman for that organization. We've been hearing it. We've been looking at the research. We've been reading the articles. We've been looking at the evidence, and it's all true. And you wouldn't appoint a scumbag that, you know, is a chairman of the board for Smartmatic to the Biden administration's transition team if you weren't repaying the favor for something. It's just too odd. It's just too odd. All right. And he's not a Navy guy, by the way. He's a Coast Guard guy, for all my veteran friends that are listening, my veteran family that are listening. Guys, if that's not enough to convince you of the dastardly deep state swamp, because I know a lot of people haven't heard of this guy, I bet you've heard of this guy or gal, however you want to look at him. Her, excuse me. It. Let's just call it. It's Hillary Clinton. It's Hillary Clinton. Let's just call her it. Biden considers Hillary Clinton for U.S. ambassador role. Folks, let's put the deep state back in, right? Putting the band back together. Woo! Bill and Ted, right? Let's get the band back together. I guess you'd call it Bill and Ted. That was really silly of me. But, you know, this is not good. This is real, folks. Biden considers Hillary Clinton for UN ambassador role. This is out of The Independent. This is by Namita Singh, the transition team of president-elect. There it is again. He's not the president-elect, ladies and gentlemen. The transition team for president-elect Joe Biden. I don't even want to say that. Ugh. It's just ugh, because he's not. He's the president-elect of Joe Bidenville in the nursing home. And by the way, to all my friends on Parler, there's like a trend going around on Parler where people are putting office of the president-elect in front of their tag name, and it's hilarious. I've seen people do an office of the president-elect Mike, office of the president-elect Joe. It's just funny, and I really appreciate the humor. Guys, if you're not on Parler, get on Parler. Download the app, put it in, because I'm telling you, it's not censored. People are allowed to communicate. People can reach each other. People can organize. And it's one of the last bastions we have left on social media where they're not going to censor us, tear us down, and rip us apart. But I want to read part of this because we're getting close to the end here, where I'm going to really put it together here. Joe Biden is reported to be considering Hillary Clinton for a role in his administration, with the former Secretary of State in the running to become the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. Ms. Clinton, who lost to Donald Trump in the 2016 presidential election, is being discussed as a potential pick for the role, according to the Washington Post. Isn't it funny how these articles then write articles? I mean, not articles, these news companies, they'll write an article about another news company. Like a news company like the Washington Post will write an article, and then the Independent will write an article about that article. It's just regurgitation. It really is. And it's highlighted here. The fake president-elect has already begun assembling his coronavirus task force. And in the coming months, we'll need to choose the members of his cabinet. Discussions are underway, even as Mr. Trump has refused to concede the election, citing voter fraud without providing evidence. Have you've been listening to me, right, folks, for the last 45 minutes or so? I've been providing so much evidence. And if you have people that want to hear or see the evidence, you can have them listen to this. I would really appreciate it if you'd share this around, you'd echo this around, get this thing around. It is going along, but people need to know what's going on. Folks, on Miss Clinton, sources told the Post that the move would be a way for Biden to highlight the importance of that position in his administration, and that placing her there, her being Hillary Clinton, would raise the prestige of the UN itself at a time when global cooperation and the U.S. role on the world stage has ebbed. Folks, what that's called is plugging back in to the Matrix. This is the scene in the Matrix where that bald guy Cypher is sitting at the dinner table eating a steak with Agent Smith going, "Ignorance is bliss." This is BS. That's just putting all of the bad people back in their positions so we can make war again. You want to see the Middle East peace deals go to shit? Put Hillary Clinton in charge. Pardon my language, but put Hillary Clinton in charge of the UN and watch us go into World War III. That's all they've wanted. That's originally how they would have brought forth this great reset that we've talked about in other videos. And if you want to know what the great reset is, we do have another video up that you could watch about that. But this is exactly what they do. They do this every time. And this is a whole butt-kissing article, literally a butt-kissing article about how Trump is evil, Orange Man bad, Hillary Clinton is the best, let's put her back in so we can all go back to normal, hooray, 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 when basically they mean let's fill the freaking corrupt coffers back up and get rid of Americans actually making choices for Americans. Remember, they want to shift us to that socialist society, but it's not going to happen. And it's not going to happen because you never, ever bet against Donald Trump. And like he said, never bet against me. Trump makes first post-election comments, lays out his path to victory. Never bet against me. That's what Trump said, guys. That's what President Trump told the Washington Examiner reporter Byron York on Thursday. And I believe him, ladies and gentlemen. You should too. I believe him when Trump says never bet against me. Right now is probably the time to go to some betting websites and put a bet on Trump, because it's probably really cheap to buy in and you'll probably get a really big payoff once he freaking wins. In his first post-election comments on the state of the 2020 presidential race, Trump was optimistic, laying out a scenario in which he pulls out wins in key battleground states and gets to the magic number of 270 in the Electoral College. He goes, "We're going to win Wisconsin," the president said in the exclusive phone interview. "Arizona, it'll be down to 8,000 votes. We'll get an audit and in the millions of votes, and we'll find 8,000 votes easy. If we can do an audit, we'll be in good shape there. Georgia, we're going to win because now we're about down to 10,000, 11,000 votes. We have hand counting." He's referring to the call by Georgia's Secretary of State to do a full audit on the election. And they are hand counting right now, ladies and gentlemen. You've seen it in the news. Hand counting is the best, Trump says. To do a spin of the machine doesn't mean anything. You pick up 10 votes. But when you hand count, I think we're going to win Georgia. And they probably will, because some of that Dominion software, I believe, was used down there. And by hand counting, they're going to get out of the Dominion. They're going to count what Dominion missed. That's going to be a huge thing, by the way, when they do hand counts in some of these states and find out that Dominion switched hundreds of thousands of votes. I mean, the crap's really going to hit the fan, guys. People are going to have to go to jail. This is treason. At the highest extent, this is treason, ladies and gentlemen. It's terrible what's happening. Trump also presented a rosy view in North Carolina, where he leads by more than 70,000 votes. He predicts a win there, unless, he said jokingly, they happen to find a lot of votes. And he did win North Carolina. That leaves Pennsylvania, where Trump trails 60,000 votes, and Michigan, where he's behind more than 145,000. The two big states, Trump said, adding, they're all sort of big. Then he complained about the process in Pennsylvania. See, they still word these horrible little things. They just take these little jabs at them. It's not journalism. It's crap writing. Trump then complained about the process in Pennsylvania. No, he's stating the facts about what's happening in Pennsylvania. They wouldn't let our poll watchers and observers watch or observe, he said. That's a big thing. They should throw those votes out that went through during those periods of time when Trump observers weren't there. We went to court. The judge ordered those observers back. But that was after 2 days, and millions of votes could have gone through. Millions. And remember, those observers never got to watch. Finally, when they let them in, they had to stand 20 feet away with binoculars. And then if they got close, they then moved the tables back where they were counting. It's all shady stuff, like we were talking about earlier in the article that was talking about Tammany and all of the different shaking up people and screwing with elections to get people to vote. I mean, this is real mafia stuff. This is horrible stuff, especially in Pennsylvania, a state known for voter fraud, historically known for voter fraud. Look, we could keep going with this. We really could. But we do need to start wrapping this up. We've been going for like an hour and a half. Woo. This is a big one, ladies and gentlemen, a big one. And I know we went through a lot of articles and stuff, and it's kind of a different format than we're used to. And I hope you bear with me on some of my little slow areas in this, but trust me, I'm the type of person that I do it once or twice. I get it down packed and it gets good. Trust me, I'm not going to let you down, guys. But look, we talked about how they paint this narrative, right? We talked about this horrible narrative they painted for the last few years. Trump's going to cheat. We're going to do all this horrible stuff. We're going to steal this election. We're going to do all this stuff to them while they're pretending they won. And they didn't win. They know they didn't win. We keep going. We talked about how they're the ones that are actually cheating because they're pretending that this voter fraud isn't happening now. They said it was happening. Now it's not happening. It is, it isn't, it is, it isn't. And then we start learning about Dominion. We start learning about all of these horrible things that are happening. And then Sidney Powell says she's going to release the Kraken. That's what Sidney Powell says. She's going to release the Kraken. I don't think you quote that. I don't think you say, I will release the Kraken, unless you have a Kraken to release. And Sidney Powell's famous for bringing forth the Krakening. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think this week we're going to see some crazy stuff we never thought we'd see before. But I still am putting my money on Trump landsliding this election. He might not have done it on election night the way he was supposed to if you took away the mail-in ballots. But once this dust is settled, once Dominion's held accountable, once the right people are put in the right positions of pressure being put against them and they're squeezed, once the Supreme Court has no choice but to make a call, it's not going to be heads or tails. It's going to be Trump or Trump. Trump 2020. We're going to beat this. We're going to win. We saw what happened Saturday. We're not going to take it. We are digital soldiers. We are part of this movement, and we will no longer be silent. We will prevail, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to thank you guys so much for sticking with me for this hour and a half. It was so much fun. I had a great time, and I just really, really, really enjoy being able to put out the right information for you guys so that you see what's actually happening, so that you can make a valid judgment call for your family, so that you can do what's right when it comes time to be honorable or cower, because you need to know what's actually happening. And I'm just very, very blessed that you guys are allowing me to do that so far, and that this movement, this thing, this American Reveille, this awakening is growing at such a speed, at such a rate, and it's amazing to me, and I'm so thankful. So guys, I appreciate it. Please, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave me a rating, give me a 5-star review if you really love what we're doing. Those reviews count. They move us up the ratings. They really help. If you're listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like the channel, do everything you can can to share this, talk about it. We're moving stuff to Rumble every day. We're getting everything over there. I'm on Parler at the James Lane. I'm throughout the other social medias, but my main hub is now Parler. It is the last conservative bastion. It is the conservative stronghold. It is where we have to go for the truthful, uncensored, uncut, right-wing media. Ladies and gentlemen, God bless you. I appreciate you so much, and I will talk to you next week. Cheers. Oh, good. I am glad you're still here, comrade. I need you to do me big favor. I need you to go and hit this like button right here. I need you to hit this share button right here. And most important of all, I need you to come up here and hit the subscribe button. Yes, you have to hit the subscribe button and subscribe to American Reveille YouTube channel. Good. And then, comrade, when you're done, go up to the Parler. All right, I need you to find the Parler. Go into your App Store, your Google Play Store, and find Parler, Parler. Okay, Parler. And when you get on the Parler, either in the app or www.parler.com, you come and find at the James Lane. The James Lane, the owner and the president of the American Reveille. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, thank you this so much, and I look forward to building gigantic, united, right-wing community with you.